It took 25 years to unravel this terrible story. An American university student left a party and disappeared without a trace. From the first days, the police had a suspect, but it was not possible to prove his guilt. Only several decades later, the author of the podcast unearthed the terrible details of this case, attracted the attention of millions of people to it, and forced the police to start the investigation again. Christine Smart was born on February 20, 1977, in the German city of Augsburg. However, in early childhood she moved with her parents and siblings to the United States. The family settled in Stockton, California, where her parents worked as teachers for the children of American military personnel. After graduating from high school in 1996, Kristen entered California Polytechnic University. In her free time from school, she worked as a lifeguard at the recreation center on campus. On May 25th, that same year, a large birthday party was planned at the fraternity house. Initially, Kristen had planned to attend the party with friends, but they eventually decided against it. So, she went to the fraternity house on her own. The party was typical of American college student life: alcohol, music, and fun. That evening, Kristen drank too much and began to feel unwell. Around 2 a.m., she decided to walk back to her dorm, but she could barely walk on her own. Two other students, Cheryl Anderson and Tim, saw Kristen on the street and offered to help her get home. After some time, another student, Paul Flores, who had also been at the party, joined them. He offered to take Kristen back to the dorm as he lived closer. Cheryl and Tim, who had to go in a different direction, said goodbye and left. After that, no one saw Kristen alive again. At first, her disappearance didn't seem urgent. Kristen's roommate, Margarita Campos, was the first to notice her absence and began to worry. She knew that Kristen would have returned after the party, but when she didn't, it raised alarm bells. Margarita also noticed that all of Kristen's important belongings, including her passport, wallet, and bank card, were left behind. This meant she couldn't have simply taken off somewhere. Margarita contacted campus police 2 days after Kristen went missing. She had hoped Kristen would come back, but when she didn't, she knew something was wrong. However, the campus police didn't take Margarita's concerns seriously at first. It was the weekend, and the U.S. National Day of Remembrance was being observed. The police assumed Kristen had simply gone home and dismissed the fact that she had left behind all her personal belongings in the dorm. After a few days, the police reached out to Kristen's parents, who were immediately concerned when they learned their daughter had not contacted them. Still, the police were slow to act, stating that Kristen could have been out with friends. It wasn't until 4 days after her disappearance that a formal search began. Initially, the police asked volunteers to help, but they found no trace of Kristen. The last person to see Kristen was Paul Flores. He told the detectives that after he escorted Kristen to her dorm, they said goodbye, and she went inside alone. He claimed he then immediately went to bed. But inconsistencies quickly emerged in Paul's story. His dorm neighbors saw him go to the shower at around 5 a.m., even though he had claimed to have gone to bed right after saying goodbye to Kristen. Moreover, Paul had a black eye and scratches on his knees. When questioned about these injuries, Paul gave 3 different explanations for how he got them. This only made him look more suspicious, but the police still didn't have any direct evidence against him. A month passed, and the search area was expanded to Kristen's hometown. Journalists caught on to the case, even comparing it to the popular TV show Twin Peaks. Some psychics came forward, claiming that 2 men on campus had killed Kristen and thrown her body off a cliff. The police dismissed these claims, but the case remained cold. In 1997, Kristen's parents filed a lawsuit against Paul Flores, accusing him of being involved in their daughter's disappearance. Paul took the stand under oath but refused to answer most questions, invoking the Fifth Amendment to avoid self-incrimination. The Flores family then countersued Kristen's family, claiming emotional distress caused by the accusations. However, neither lawsuit led to any breakthrough. On May 25, 2002, 6 years after Kristen's disappearance, the authorities officially declared her dead, but despite this, the investigation failed to move forward. The case remained unsolved until 2018, when California resident Chris Lambert, who was only 8 years old when Kristen disappeared, launched his own podcast series about unsolved crimes. He was particularly interested in Kristen's case, remembering how it had shocked the community at the time. Lambert was appalled by the police's lack of progress over the years and began his own investigation. Lambert interviewed several witnesses and discovered that Paul Flores had a reputation for harassing female students. Despite multiple complaints, no formal actions were ever taken. He then analyzed the police's handling of the case and found several critical errors. For example, when Paul's father's house was first searched, the police didn't bring criminologists or cadaver dogs trained to detect decomposition, rendering the search ineffective. Even more suspicious, Paul's family had 2 cars, and one was sold while the other was reported stolen shortly after Kristen's disappearance. 4 months after Kristen went missing, a woman named Mary Lasseter, who was renting a room in Paul's mother's house, found an earring that looked identical to the one Kristen had been wearing when she disappeared. Mary brought the earring to the police, but it was either disregarded or lost. Lambert later uncovered that, just after Kristen's disappearance, a section of concrete from Paul's mother's yard had been cut out and replaced with a flower bed. Mary also revealed an eerie detail. She heard a sound resembling an alarm clock going off at 4:20 a.m. every day. When Lambert investigated further, Kristen's mother confirmed that her daughter had always set her alarm for 4:20 a.m. to get to work at the campus recreation center by 5 a.m. Lambert's podcast, Your Own Backyard, quickly gained a massive following, with over 6 million listeners. The public outrage over the case's mishandling by the police grew, and in 2019, it helped bring renewed attention to the investigation. Finally, in 2020, the police decided to reopen the case. They searched several locations, including Paul's father's house. The police eventually recovered 2 of Paul's cars and discovered traces of human decomposition under the flower bed. While Kristen's body wasn't found, the evidence collected was significant. On February 11, 2021, Paul Flores was arrested, but not for Kristen's disappearance. He was initially charged for possession of an unregistered weapon. Later, on April 13th, Paul and his father were both taken into custody in connection with Kristen's disappearance. The investigation revealed that after Kristen rebuffed Paul's advances, he may have killed her during the struggle, then transported her body to his father's house, where they buried her in the backyard and disguised it as a flower bed. Paul and his father have both pleaded not guilty, and the trial is ongoing. Despite the long wait for justice, the mountain of evidence suggests that they will face significant consequences. Kristen's parents have publicly thanked Chris Lambert and the millions of people who helped bring the case back into the spotlight, bringing them closer to the truth. Now, all we can do is wait for the trial to conclude and for the criminals to finally face justice. Thank you for watching.